as we can feel the pressure. These cowboys can harness the energy, they can feel the excitement. Think about what's going through this cowboy's mind.
The gate opens and you see the bull coming out. Honestly, I just hear silence. Seven different emotions go through you in about 10 seconds and then they go on repeat.
This is when it hits another level of energy.
To be a rodeo cowboy, you want a bit of gravel in your gut.
Typical cowboy, obviously half mad.
Good morning. Oh well, we've got a lot of wind this morning and I checked Marrawara. One of the wind farms are working out there and it's putting out about 90% of its nameplate capacity, which is great to see. The other one's not working at all, which I'm not exactly sure why. So that's been 10 days or so at least before we've got wind that can actually drive Marrawara somewhere near its full capacity. But what I thought I'd talk about today is Matt Keane, and given the corruption in Victoria and the passing off to criminals and the CFMEU and Mick Gatto $15 billion, Matt Keane, who's chair of the Climate Change Authority appointed by Chris Bowen, he's looking nearly as dodgy as the Victorian government. Is the Australian government picking up a lot of their points, and are they just passing off money to the wrong people? I think that's a good question and it should be asked. The opposition should be asking that every day. Matt Keane, who is a Liberal member in the New South Wales Parliament, is actually been travelling all around the world but advertising his own private companies in the renewable space. Matt Keane may well be as corrupt and unethical as the rest of the clowns that are running in this renewable space. VicGrid, which is an arm of the Victorian government, is operating, if not unethically, if not illegally, at least unethically. And I think that's a real problem for VicGrid and AusNet. I think for them to get that transmission line completed, there is going to be some extremely ruthless land takeovers and compulsory acquisitions occur. We can do a whole lot better. Australia should do a whole lot better. We should expect a whole lot better from our politicians. There must be some integrity. There cannot be criminal activity. They cannot be passing off billions and billions and billions to global multinationals at the expense of the Australians. This is a poor process. It's poorly managed, and I think it's not in Australia's best interests. The data centres, the one in Victoria they're planning out at Sydenham, will take something like 2.4 gigawatts of power, which is around about 60% of their energy by 2030. So bear in mind that energy hasn't risen much in that time. All of a sudden now we've got data centres, government approved data centres, that are going to have massive amounts of energy required, and not intermittent power like renewables. They're going to require constant, reliable, dependable power. Very interesting. Thank you very much. It's Ross Johns here from the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. Enjoy your day.
And a very good morning. It's a Monday morning here in Australia on the Gold Coast. Shortly we'll be crossing to the US and talking some very, very serious and disturbing content. But we need to talk about it. We need to have this country aware of what's happening to our iconic Brumbies, and we're not going to let go by any stretch of the imagination. Next week, looks like we'll be up at the Mount Kosciuszko National Park and broadcasting live. So besides a challenge that will be very, very important, I would like to think so. Some of the news that's making news around Australia. Australian beef exports have held firm despite a near collapse in China's shipments, slipping just 4% as the US, Japan and South Korea stepped up. Senior water bureaucrats have scrapped, wait for this, 14 Murray-Darling Basin projects worth at least 200 gigalitres, raising fears that the federal government will strip more water from irrigation communities. Tweed Shire Council welcomes the release of CSIRO's Northern Rivers Resilience Initiative Flood Mitigation Report, focused on detailed flood modelling and mitigation scenarios for the Richmond River catchment around Lismore. Now, while the report is an important step for the region, its modelling does not extend to the Tweed River and coastal creeks catchments, and they were among the areas hit hardest in 2022. Make any sense out of that, please let me know. Authorities had to close a Queensland beach. It was Forest Beach, just north of Townsville, to remove a series of strange objects that have appeared to have come from space. We come in peace, something like that anyway. So, and by the way, for those who are sitting at the edge of the chairs and didn't see the score yesterday, St Kilda defeated Essendon, and it was a magnificent win by the Saints. In fact, I would say probably the best win ever in the history of AFL football. I'm biased. This is a Country Telegraph. If you want to find out more about Australia, what's happening in regional, rural and outback Australia, make sure you just log on to X, Facebook, Rumble or YouTube. We always have the back end of the programs there for you, and you can always watch live, which we are live right now here at the Country Telegraph.
I didn't choose this life. I was born to live it. So was Dad, his dad, and his dad before that.
Come on, ladies.
You're supposed to be slowing down, you know.
It's payback for all the free labour you got out of me as a kid.
I learned from watching my mum and dad and how they work together. So does my sister Sally.
Any trains? Righto. Feet up.
I'll always remember these days. It's the happiest days of my life. Together as a family.
Oh, you're so lucky I love you.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that about right, isn't it?
I don't know how you're going to deal with all this.
Deal with what?
$6 million debt?
Most farmers are in this amount of debt. As farmers, we gamble with the weather every day, and it's a risk we take.
You have no idea what I'm going through.
Maybe you should talk to someone.
Oh my God, no, I'm fine.
No, you're not, Alison.
You and your dad's coward.
Play a game of footy, all right?
Where's heaven?
What?
Where's heaven?
The sky, I think.
Can we go there?
He lived for the blue light of morning. A thoroughbred, built for speed, for glory, to make the trainer he loved proud. He ran his heart out for him. His name was known around the world. But as time passed, he stopped winning. The crowds forgot. His legs could no longer move as swiftly. His trainer couldn't afford to keep him, so he was sold to a good home, a fresh start, or so they thought. He could sense something was wrong. The horse trader flipped him at auction for profit, driving him for miles away from everything he'd known. Now he stands trembling in a feedlot, just like the 20,000 horses sent to slaughter each year, who meet an end they never deserved. His trainer found him before it was too late. But not all horses are lucky. Without the SAFE Act, even champions are at risk of losing far more than a race. I'm Diane Lane. Please pass the SAFE Act so no horse is lost again.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Barbara Moore is Vice President and founding member of the Equine Collaborative International, which is ECI, and is a charitable non-profit organisation with deep roots in the horse industry. The board of directors, populated by professional and non-professional horse persons with very diverse backgrounds, come from many disciplines, but share the common ambition of improving the equine industry by promoting cooperation within the horse community and also increasing the educational opportunities for everyone, from youthful beginners to long seasoned professionals. Now, meetings are open to the general membership, and so it's very transparent to the public so that all advancements and issues in the industry can be openly discussed, unlike area clubs focused on special interest, activity or geographic area. Equine Collaborative International, Inc. is an all-encompassing coalition of individuals and equine organisations of all disciplines working together to empower the equine community and advance the horse industry. Barbara Moore, thank you so much for joining us.
Mike, thank you for asking us to be involved in this. What you folks have going on in your country has every good horse person all the way around the globe lit up, and I really appreciate the opportunity you're giving for us to voice our opinions.
Tell me, before we get into that, tell me more about your organization.
We being the board of directors and a few other people came together in 2018, and by January 1st, 2019, we got ourselves well enough organized to open up this nonprofit. We had some really good help with getting things rolling, good advice from people about how to expedite matters. And since that time, we have had to move into a virtual existence. 2019, things were okay. We could still meet in person. And then came 2020. And like the rest of the world, the pandemic grabbed us, and the choices were stop doing what we're doing or find a new method of communication. And I'm very grateful for everybody that's put up with my lack of technical expertise, shall we say. And we have been able to go ahead, and the ambition from the beginning was to be international. And I'm afraid, like so many ambitions, that started out being kind of a small ball situation, because the core of our original group lives 20 miles from the Canadian border. Mm-hmm. And we had contacts over there, so we thought international was a good choice. And then the doors started to open, and we went way beyond that 20 miles. And one of the great steps that we made forward was when we made contact with your people in Australia. Dedicated does not begin to describe what I see in these Brumby advocates, and we have so many things in common that I really wanted to develop that relationship. And I have found across the equator and around the globe that those business relationships have turned into a brotherhood and sisterhood. Mm. We believe in the same things, and we're willing to stand up for the same things.
Yeah, I totally agree. The what's happening in right around the world. Look at the Dartmoor Hill ponies that have been there since for thousands of years. and they're trying to get rid of the Dartmoor Hill ponies because they destroy the environment. They are the environment. You look at the Australian landscape with the Brumbies, the iconic Australian Brumbies, which is as iconic as your Mustangs. They named a very fast car after those horses. Here in Australia, we, to save the planet, we have this mindset. We have to destroy the planet, and that is just absolutely insane. It does get down, though, to lobby groups, and these lobby groups push our government, as they do in the US, to do damage to not only these beautiful creatures, but to the entire Australian, the way we act, our way of living, and that's what they want to do. In the US, it's a bit different. You have a number of amendments that will protect you, but you still got to fight very hard. Can you just tell me about, I think it's called Safe Horses, and I have to plead partial stupidity. I forgot to actually write that down. But tell me about the initiative in the US, where they are trying to, through Congress, to stop the slaughter of these beautiful horses called Mustangs.
I believe you're referring to what we call the SAFE Act, which is Save America's Forgotten Equines Act. And it has gone before Congress time after time after time. It gets enough support that it gets through Congress, but we never get to the finish line with it. And I think we are much closer at this point. I am I'm not the ideal person to talk about that. I have enough familiarity to have this conversation with you, but I can point you at the right person if you want somebody with more expertise. The sad fact is, one thing that might move us closer to the finish line is the screwworm has come up from the south, and though it was eradicated, I believe 20 or 25 years ago, we are seeing it again, and it's been in country for a little over a month, I believe, and it has stayed limited to 2 states. There's only 1 case in New Mexico. The rest have all been identified in Texas. It was first seen in Texas, but it has spread to multiple counties in Texas. So it has closed the border. And with the border closed, the horses cannot ship to slaughter. I'm sure that there will be ways around that, but we are on guard. We are, looking to avoid those other methods.
I don't understand but by the way, until we saw this next cull in Australia, I hadn't thought much about it. I have to be honest, and not much is said about it. I just hadn't thought much about it. But I do know that we do need to treat animals with the utmost respect, and because they do rely on humans to make their life comfortable and as enjoyable as possible. So with that mantra, I started to follow the story, and none of it made any sense in Australia. The same thing in the US. The historical aspect of the horse, it is part, whether it's the US or whether it's the UK or most parts of the world, the reason why they are where they're at, and hopefully it's at a fairly good place. We do know there's some activities happening that really going to change the course of history, but the horse is part of their heritage, whether it's Australia, US, UK, Europe. And I don't understand the propensity of human nature at the moment to want to cause suffering and damage to such beautiful creatures.
You have brought up my very favorite argument, and I guess I should thank you for that. None of our countries would be where they are. They have all been built on the backs of these horses. And in my mind, that means they earn exactly the respect that you are talking about. And if we as higher beings, and I put air quotes around that statement, if we can't step up and be a voice for the voiceless, there is something sadly lacking. We would not have had a telegraph were it not for the horses. We would not have had coast to coast communication. And what has happened is, with automation, the horses became less necessary, and there are some invasive species that have been brought into this country to make money. And they have wonderfully strong lobbying organizations, and therefore they are getting attention that they shouldn't get. And the horses are losing. We have a lot of advocates. They need to pull together, and unfortunately, the ways of human nature mean that there will be some separations. But if everybody could get behind saving these horses, letting them live wild and free, and in your country as well as in this country, acknowledging the benefits of having the horses on the land. Horses are fantastic seed spreaders. They will repopulate an area with appropriate forage. Their manure improves soil. It helps to hold moisture. It fertilizes. They do not do the riparian damage that other species do. And all of that gets ignored in favor of these moneyed organizations that go in and want to get rid of the horses because they want to forage for their cattle and sheep, or even better, they want the land to use it for mining and extractive industries.
Tell me because here we have an organisation called I'll be rude, I was going to say the Jack Goff Foundation, but really it's the Invasive Species Council. The Invasive Species Council, let me tell you, I think are entirely insane. I think they've lost the plot, and I think they're bullies. That's just my own humble opinion, and we will prove that, by the way, as time goes on. But they keep saying this is, they're destroying the environment, which they are not destroying the environment. One answer, I have checked up on this, and they say for the female horse it's very hard, but for the male horse you can actually have fertility control, and therefore you can control the industry. What's your thoughts on fertility control for these wild Brumbies and Mustangs? So therefore you have a controlled number of horses, so that we then treat them with respect, and in return, they have always treated us with respect. So, what do you think about that? Because they've spent $8 million on shooting the horses. I did a calculation that it cost between $400 or $440 and $500 to perform an operation on the horse, the male horse. And that's it. So if you extrapolated that to the number of horses out there and divided that by, say, half, you would actually cost you around $4 million to perform a humane operation which lets them enjoy life, control the numbers if they do need controlling, which they don't at the moment, but you can control it. And you have both animal, part of Australia's history, and you have society moving forward, living together as one.
I think that needs to be the ultimate goal. We have to figure out how to cohabitate. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful ambition. The problem is people want to take shortcuts. They want to achieve only what they want. And if they have no conscience about what they are doing to these sentient beings, the horses lose. The people that advocate for the horses lose. But fertility control Surgical fertility control still requires, a roundup. It is invasive. It is potentially dangerous for older male animals. It's usually a fairly easy surgery for younger male animals. It is an impossible, I shouldn't use that word. It is an unlikely result that you will come out winning if you try to do surgical procedures on mares. They have tried it. It has not had good
No,
results.
it hasn't. It's a disaster. But I think if they're looking, the quick fix, well, this day of so-called fiscal accountability, if you look at 8 million compared to 4 million, already 4 million is a much better result. And it won't cost that much. I've just been a bit generous with the numbers. And then you employ people. We all of a sudden become a little more human.
The route that they're taking here, Mike, is everybody's getting on the immunosuppressant birth control bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
And true confessions here, I am not a fan. And the phrase that is most used is it's a good tool in the toolbox. But what a lot of people seem to forget is that it is a single tool in the toolbox. And they turn to that as the be-all, end-all, and that's what we need to do. But there are so many things that need to be taken into consideration. Number one, you've got a wild animal. And the moment you decide who has a baby and who doesn't have a baby, you have taken the wild out of that animal. You have removed natural selection, which is kind of the whole point of being wild. In addition to that, they are using fertility control without taking into account the genetic viability of some of these herds that they are using fertility control on. And if you already have a herd that has been reduced in numbers by roundups so that it is below what would have them be genetically viable, now you end up reducing their numbers even more with the fertility control. And genetically non-viable, to me, is a very fancy way of saying we just greased the road on the way to extinction.
Yeah.
And my feelings about it are strong. I hope I'm not upsetting everybody in the world.
What you say is correct. What we're trying to do is explore ways to appease those that want to. We call it the killing season. We're about to get into the birds instead of, as Dr. Peter McCullough said, who knows a little bit about this sort of stuff. He suggested that they let natural immunity take place, and he quoted some examples. But of course, in Australia, we have this propensity. What do we say? If it moves, shoot it. If it doesn't, you chop it down. And we have that attitude, and led by Invasive Species Council. They want to take us right back to before white man landed here, and I'm sure they would love to take us back to the days of the dinosaur. Look, I think at the moment we need to stop not just now because they're about to stop the shooting. What we need to do in Australia is stop it forever. And then we need to spend a bit of time, government, horse industry advocates, the Invasive Species Council, if you want to, and come up with a solution that works, that doesn't involve killing these beautiful creatures. And I think that's what we need to do as a civilization. We need to do that. Whether that would ever happen, I don't know, because there is always the good and the bad amongst us all. And sometimes evil does, initially win over good. Look, if somebody wants to find out more about your community, and by the way, I extend the invitation to whenever you would like to have a voice. And I have an idea, and I'll get Jen to talk to you about that later, that perhaps we could do this on a regular basis for your entire community, so that therefore we're not just, shooting a bit here and a bit there. We have some sort of plan and formula. So I'll get Jen to talk to you about that. The offer is there, by the way. Whatever we can do, because we are trusted to look after the animals. We have to look after the animals, because if we don't, generally, no one will. If they want to find out more about your organisation, Barbara, how do they do that?
They can email me at 411eci@gmail.com, or they can go to our website, which is very simply Equine Collaborative International.org. And there are always contacts on there. I am not at all averse to emails and phone calls, because it's our job to spread the word. And I want to thank you before we're even done, because I have listened to your reporting on this topic, and you kept it real. You made it honest. And I have found problems with the media, because investigative reporters kind of don't investigate anymore. They copy and paste, and it all depends on where they find their information, what they are spitting out to the public. And your honesty is a breath of fresh air.
I appreciate that. We've got a long way to go yet. We need to, words are cheap. That's what we do, words, but words are cheap, and we need to hold the community accountable, because they have to look after these beautiful animals. And we owe, whether it's in the UK, the US, Australia, anywhere, we owe these animals a great gratitude, and probably a big hug, because without them, as you said, we wouldn't be here now. Barbara Moore, thank you so much for your time. We will do this a lot more often. I appreciate it very much. This is the Country Telegraph. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Those that work the land know this. Our lives are drawn from the earth, our food from the soil that we tend. We are custodians. We protect it, we defend it, we seek to share the abundance for the common good.
Australia's prosperity was built on the wise use of its natural bounty. Fertile land, mineral resources, hard work and abundant energy. Energy powers our farms, our industries, our transport and our homes. It sustains modern life and underwrites national strength.
Energy security is economic security. Economic security is national security. A country that cannot rely on affordable, abundant and reliable energy puts its prosperity, its sovereignty and its freedom at risk.
We believe Australia should use all its resources wisely and in a national interest so that our children inherit a country that remains productive, secure and free.
Recent events have shown us how carelessly we have ruined our inheritance. We sit on vast reserves of coal, oil and gas, but we are not fuel secure. We are not fertiliser secure, so we are not food secure. This is a warning. Any future serious disruption to regional sea lanes would cripple the nation and empty our supermarket shelves.
We stand on a simple principle. Political power exists to serve the people, and the first duty of the state is the well-being of the nation and its communities.
We have not been well served. Our liquid fuel security is running dry, and our electricity system has been diverted from delivering cheap, abundant power to chasing targets and slogans. Policy unmoored from physics and economic reality has turned an energy-rich land into a decadent state.
So we reject the sacrifice of productive farmland and natural habitat to sprawling industrial wind and solar estate strung together by vast transmission networks. In a perversion of environmentalism, our landscape is being despoiled in the name of saving the planet.
We're calling for an urgent review into an energy policy that was never built for purpose. Billions of dollars have been spent on wind and solar projects that only deliver part-time power. Billions more on transmission that's required to bind it all together, and then good money after bad to back up a system where failure is a design feature. The result is a weaker, less resilient, but more costly energy system. And the proof of that is in everyone's power bill. Australians are paying more and getting less. Energy users are suffering, while developers from offshore are being subsidised.
This is not nation building, it's a misallocation of capital. The scaling of unproductive generation is delivering a less productive nation. We are willfully turning a rich nation into a poorer one.
No sector is being asked to bear more than agriculture and regional communities. Farmers are expected to yield their land, pay the price of mitigation, shoulder the cost of adaptation, and go on feeding the nation as if none of this has consequences.
Those that live off the land and sustain Australia and many beyond cannot be sacrificed to an energy and climate policy that destroys the economics of production. We say that a free and secure nation producing food and energy in abundance, responsibly and sustainably, is the best contribution Australia can make to society.
We will defend the land we know, the communities we have built, and the legacy we hold in trust for those that come after us. To keep Australia prosperous, sovereign, and free is our duty, and in an uncertain world, our best defence.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Heard a big yawn there in the background, a big sigh. Probably been up since 4 a.m. That's what she does. Gets up very early, does her 15-kilometre run, and then does weights and probably some rifle shooting. Maybe not, we'll find out. July 1 marked the commencement of the National Environmental Protection Agency and additional EPBC regulations and measures. Now, we've heard from many on this show that the reforms to the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, which is the EPBC, significantly affects property and landholder rights. The legislation contains stricter land clearing rules, removal of forestry exemptions, and a massive increase in penalties and severe remediation orders. And I'm going to play a clip later on, probably next hour if I haven't got time, and it will show you how nuts it is. For farmers, property buyers and developers, strict due diligence will be required, undertaking vegetation management without formal referral or exhaustive self-assessment risks, heavy remediation orders that can seriously impact land use. Adam Power is a mother, agriculture family business owner, educator and independent candidate for the federal campaign in Maranoa in Queensland, when hopefully we'll never see anything connected to Anthony Albanese again. Anna, thank you for joining us.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Good. I could hear the sigh. Obviously, you must have gone for your 15-kilometre run.
I did a little circuit just to get a little bit of energy out of my system.
Good on you. Good on you. Hey, tell me your thoughts on the EPBC.
The Environment Protection and Biosecurity Conservation Act. My thoughts are that it was brought in under the Howard government in 1999. And then the Howard government signed up in 2001 to the mandatory renewable energy target, which basically signed away our energy security, which used to be basically cheap, reliable coal and gas, and brought in the renewable energy industrial complex. So they basically decided that they were going to, because there's really no business model in the open market for solar panels, wind, and hydro, the government signed away our taxes to subsidise it. So I'm interested because the National Party are now howling about all of this stuff, but it was actually brought in by the coalition. And both sides have basically sold us away to global interests ever since.
And it doesn't matter who you vote for when it comes to the Conservatives or Labor. As somebody once said, same policy, different head, different face. How do we? I mean, and of course, they say when you have your chance, you vote and make that difference. And I believe that's not always correct, but you might have a voice. Doesn't mean you're going to make much of a change. What do we need to do to ensure that we can get back on track with common sense in this country, or is that just something that will never ever happen again?
Look, I'll speak from an agricultural perspective. The biggest problem we have, I feel, in agriculture is that most people don't understand this as part of a global agenda. So the United Nations have a nature positive plan. If you go to the website, government website, it says nature positive plan, right? So people focus on the EPBC Act, but really you'll find a lot of it's coming out of the United Nations Nature Positive Plan, which was specifically also alluded to by the Labor government in 2022. So when people think that they've got some control over what's happening, we actually don't. And both sides have signed up to this under the United Nations. So this is my biggest concern, is that people think that they can literally go to their representatives and that they're going to act maybe on their behalf still, and they literally aren't.
Yeah, I look at the EPA or the NEPA here, and what they again, I'll just briefly fill you in which you know anyway for our audience. Deal done between Labor and Greens. Yeah, NEPA, National Environmental Protection Authority, going to look after our environment. And if they're in Canberra and they look up, they'll see Queensland, and if they look at, this is one example, and if they look at Queensland, they'll see, the Great Dividing Range continues. Now, the Great Dividing Range is one example of this just being it's so hypocritical, so much of a lie, it's unbelievable, that they are bulldozing the top of the Great Dividing Range, installing wind turbines. They are annihilating the environment. 400 metres either side of these wind towers, native animals can't live, so they're moving away. Those that are found there, reports are that they're knocked on their head with a shovel, and the Environmental Protection Authority is doing nothing. At the same time, when you have a fire, these things catch fire, or just a lightning strike or whatever, you can't get in aerial support. If you can't get in aerial support to put out the fire, and you can't get in there because there are no clearings or roads to get in there, it will burn down. It will burn down, and it's just a matter of time. So I think the whole act, this whole thing, is just smoke and mirrors, and it is not sincere at all. What's your thoughts on that, Anna?
Well, I totally agree, because from an agricultural perspective, we literally get satellites spied on now. So they use satellites to watch what we're doing as productive people in this country who we have to manage our land, otherwise we go bankrupt. Especially small and medium businesses, we don't have shareholders, we don't have super funds behind us, we don't take tax subsidies like the mainly foreign-owned renewables companies. And I don't want any because it just makes things worse. But I'm just pointing out that in order to survive, we manage our land properly. And yet we are the ones who are subjected to this legislation. And this is state now, this is federal. Council has ridiculous compliance. So this is 3 levels of government that good, honest people try to go about their business get subjected to, and yet foreign companies can come in here, get our taxes to subsidise a failed business model, and it's failed. It failed overseas before it even came here, and can go in and do what you just explained. I fly over these things regularly. They're often not moving. Acciona down the road they did change the travel bearings in the wind turbines, so they started blowing up. And then they need to get this massive crane, which of course is because they are subject to a lot of the ridiculousness we are. You know, you can't operate a crane until you've done the training. The cranes are so large to get them in there, expensive, whatever, to change all these bearings. And they say that's environmentally friendly. We literally send our resources to places like China and India, and then they make them into solar panels, electric batteries, these massive wind turbines, ship them back here, and we're told at great expense, put in great expense, and we're told that's that's more environmentally friendly than literally just burning our own coal at the source, which is what we used to have. And we had some of the cheapest, most reliable energy in the world, which is why we were a prosperous country.
Yep. I often go, and you're dead right, and it's this, the other agenda is at play, and we do know what's happening, and the government makes no.
Well, the thing is, Mike, most people do not know what is happening. They have no idea. I read through the ag bodies that are supposed to represent farmers. They've all signed up to this. So my feedback to ag bodies is they should be completely independent. They shouldn't be signing up to any government ideology, any global ideology. They should just be there to advocate for farmers or graziers or whoever they're claiming to advocate for. That's all they should do. They shouldn't be on the National Party side. They should be completely independent. Don't take any government money, because once you take the government money, and this is how the government own a lot of us now, not me, but a lot of it, I see it everywhere, is through grants. So they give a grant to, say, the NFF, they give a grant to Queen's Ag Force, and then that comes with KPIs. Or that comes with, oh, well, we've patted your back, you need to pat our back now. You can't play politics and advocate for agriculture. It's impossible. And I've watched this trend over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's incredible. I often go on like a pork chop sometimes. It's just my inherent nature. And you saw the better part of me the other day because I was busy. But I always say that the farmer has always been unappreciated, but this time they're under attack. And these attacks are basically to save the planet with renewables, whether they're transmission towers or wind turbines and solar farms in Victoria and New South Wales. I see that Queensland has they just passed a new compulsory acquisitions act under the LNP, same law, different face, that they can come in and also confiscate your land if they need to put in renewables. And if they didn't want renewables and they thought they were terrible, they would have stopped what's happening in the Great Dividing Range.
Well, but the thing is, Mike, look at who donate. You always go back to look at the donors, okay? So actions always speak louder than words. And this is what I keep saying to people when they go, oh, the National Party are ditching net zero. I'm like, they're saying they're ditching net zero, but go back to the actions, because ditching net zero means nothing. Everything's legislated now. Miners make more money than ever from renewables because there is more mining than ever to make solar panels and wind turbines and electric batteries. It is very mining intensive. So I find it completely hilarious when people tell me that it's green to make renewables, because it's not. And the other thing is the Minerals Council of Australia, who basically the big donors for both sides, they're calling some pretty big shots. And I'm not anti-mining. I'm anti-good mining that actually benefits our country and our citizens, which it's not, because 90% of our resources are now foreign owned, and that's been sold out by both sides of politics. And then they're paymasters they need to deliver for. So lithium, cobalt, iron ore, all of these things that get shipped overseas to make solar panels and wind turbines and electric batteries to be shipped back here at great expense, and then we taxpayers subsidise them. I really don't believe that most in agriculture and most Australians know that this is happening.
Yeah, I totally agree. So the attack on the farmer will continue.
So the attack on the farmer is not by most people. If I go into the city and I talk to people about ag, most people love ag, they respect ag. It's only the pointy end of the country that attack ag. And that's because they're career politicians who've signed up to a global agenda that most people have no idea about. So if people look up Nature Positive Plan, you'll get the United Nations 2030 agenda, you'll get the World Economic Forum. Most people, if I went down to the street and asked people about these things, they have no idea about it. You don't hear about it in elections. What you hear is stakeholder, sustainable, green, renewables, diversity, equity, inclusion, gender, affordable energy. That's the clickbait. The reality is the complete opposite.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have run out of time because you know that we're so professional here.
Well, I've been really good, Mike, and I've been looking at you properly, I hope, and I'm framed right, and I haven't been moved too much. I've listened to your advice. It's a bit boring. It's a bit boring, but I'm trying.
You've done a very good job there. You will get a star on your chest.
I was an A+ student at school. Just ask any teacher.
What happened after that?
Well, it's the teachers who didn't mind being questioned. They liked me.
Excellent. I think we need to always question why. Just find out.
You gotta ask questions, and you can't run on emotion.
No.
I was listening to the horse lady before, very nice lady coming from a good place. But all I keep thinking is, if people want good outcomes, you have to put the emotion aside. You really do.
I think she was entirely correct, and it's I don't think there's anything wrong with having emotion, providing you have control of the facts. And I think
No, but we also have to talk about animals in the modern world and how that could be a topic for another day. But from an agricultural perspective, we really need to talk about the realities of animal build-up in the modern world. And I'm breaking away from being good, so I'm going to leave you and let the next man, he's probably keen to talk, so let him talk.
We will have that later on. Now, by the way, if somebody wants to find out more, to have a conversation with you, how do they do that?
Anna Power on Facebook, and Vote 1 Anna Power for Maranoa on Facebook. I just do this voluntarily, so if you want to message me, I might get back to you, but it might be quick. And yeah.
It will happen. Anna, thank you so much for framing right. Thank you so much for just looking fantastic.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Mike, and lovely to meet you and Lynn and Jenny the other day. I really enjoyed, real life, and I enjoyed meeting you in real life. It was great.
And I was the best.
The best.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
see you later.
This is the Country Telegraph.
Kona Creek's 46,000 acres, but it's not about the scale, it's about the project you're working on that day. It's breaking the problem down into small bits, solving that problem, and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah, and then also the patterns are all the same. It doesn't matter how big, small the place is. You're looking for the same patterns everywhere in Australia. Whether you're a high rainfall or a low rainfall, it's the same patterns, just a different landscape.
We're Ra and Tina Briggs, Kona Creek, west of Springshaw. We are fortunate that we've got these watersheds. It's important to have a whole of system approach to it because it all fits together, you know.
And it's really important that you have a plan. So our plan was we started at the top, but everything that you do has a flow-on effect, and we are seeing that flow-on effect. We do want to restore the wetland that's in the bottom, and Ra's put in quite a few check banks. We've slowed that flow, the water backs up, there's been a level of deposition and biodiversity, growth, like the birds and the trees and the plants, and underneath the trees it's all beautiful and green and it's cooler.
Yeah, that's right. And little projects like a food foresty type situation or a wetland, they don't take up much room. You know, we're talking tenths of a % of area, so why not? You know, why not do something that's a bit of fun and a learning experience as well? And I say the words give something back, but we're gaining much more than we're giving.
So by doing this, that's our way to make sure that every acre does count. So when it comes to reading the landscape, for us, in the beginning, Ra had done heaps of research into ways of making the land better, and that's when he came across natural sequence farming. When we got back from Tarwin Park training, as we drove in, we were looking at the landscape with very different eyes from when we left, but still unsure of where to start, and that's when your analysis paralysis sets in, but that's not an excuse for not starting.
It's very easy to get lost in the detail, especially when you fire up a machine and start pushing dirt. So having a clear objective, whether you get it flying around or walking around or what, you need that start, middle, finish.
Make a decision and start.
Everyone loves the environment. I mean, nobody wants to live in an eroded landscape, drought-ravaged hellhole. We all want nice things, you know, and this has become our major drought reduction strategy. So I feel like I've discovered my life's work, improving this place,
and the results that we're seeing are amazing.
And driving big yellow machines is fun too.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Thank you very much to Anna Powell and also to everybody who's sent us messages. Appreciate it very much. Some of the news that's making news right around Australia. Australian beef exports have held firm despite a near collapse in China's shipments, slipping just 4% as the US, Japan and South Korea stepped up. Senior water bureaucrats have scrapped 14 Murray-Darling Basin projects worth at least 200 gig, raising fears the federal government will strip more water from the irrigation communities. Of course they will. They don't like farmers. Tweed Shire Council welcomes the release of CSIRO's Northern Rivers Resilience Initiative Flood Mitigation Report, focused on detailed flood modelling and mitigation scenarios for the Richmond River catchment around Lismore. Now, while this report is a very important step for the region, its modelling does not extend to the Tweed River and Coastal Creeks catchments, among the areas hit hardest in 2022. Oops, forgot that one. Authorities had to close a Queensland beach. It was Forest Beach, just north of Townsville, to remove a series of strange objects. That's strange objects, they're like little balls that appear to have come from outer space. Call home, E.T. But don't go near them. You may zip and go to another universe. Might be another project, Hail Mary. Okay, so if you want to find out more about what's happening around the country, regional, rural, outback, cap cities, for example, and, oh, by the way, St Kilda beat Essendon, just for those that have missed the news yesterday. Best win ever in AFL history, apparently. But just if you want to find out all that sort of stuff and other dribble, from me. Just go to X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and we're live on all those platforms. This is the Country Telegraph. Dean Marsland is a photographer and career and volunteer firefighter. Now, the high country has been his backyard for 50 years. He's the owner of My Big Backyard Photography, also a bushwalker, a four-wheel drive driver and outdoorsman, and just has enormous respect for the environment around him. Dean, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, good morning, Mike.
And
thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Tell me your thoughts at the moment and what you're seeing on your drives from Victoria to Mount Kosciuszko.
Sorry. Oh, I've lost you. There you go. The drives themselves are magnificent. You know, there's some gorgeous scenery out there as you leave the low country and get up into the mountains and whatnot. It's what we see when we arrive that's really, really disturbing. You know, we park the car. We don't drive to the well, when I say we don't drive, we drive to the locations in general and then leave the car and do a heck of a lot of walking to get to the places that we go to. And, you know, we see everything along the way. We'll see wallabies, kangaroos, emus, get honked at by sandbar deer, see some lovely horses, and then all of a sudden we find the lovely horses that have been shot, which, you know, it's confronting.
Yeah, we just had we have people on saying that we need to get real about these horses. These horses aren't livestock, first of all. So when they say they're livestock or feral, they're not either of those. These horses are part of our history, and they've even done DNA that goes right back. And it's the same in the UK and the US. They are part of our history. And as Barbara said before, that without these horses, we wouldn't be where we are now. And I'm not too sure if that's a good thing at the moment. Have they stopped the aerial culling, or are they doing any sort of shooting at the moment with the horses in Kosciuszko?
So the aerial culling in the northern block, that ceased last Tuesday. But what they did was they commenced aerial culling in the southern block. So the areas that run from sort of Jindabyne up through Thredbo along the Alpine Way and flowing all the way down towards the Snowy River and the Victorian border. So whether they're flying today, I don't know. They pick and choose their days depending on weather. But they moved that aerial culling from the northern block to the southern block for the next 2 weeks. When it comes to ground shooting, that's ongoing. They don't have to tell the public that they are undertaking it. They don't have to close the national park while they're undertaking it. So you could be out there, as I have been, just wandering through the high country, enjoying the scenery, observing native wildlife, native vegetation, our heritage Brumbies, and all of a sudden you hear gunshots ring out. And it's very disconcerting when you're, 8, 10, 12 kilometres away from your vehicle and suddenly gunshots ring out. And there's 3 of my friends can attest that one day when I was on the Bogong High Plains in Victoria, south of Falls Creek, I had to ring them by phone and say, listen guys, this is where I am. You've got a timestamp now of the phone call. This is what's going on. Gunshots have rung out. This is where I'm heading to today. If you don't hear from me by 2 p.m, please send help. Now, 45 minutes after making that phone call, I came across a group of 4 men, 2 of them just in, blue yakka workwear, 2 of them in camouflage stuff. They looked like they were from the military. They had Kevlar helmets on, they had neck snoods up that covered their nose, sunglasses on so you couldn't recognise them. Sitting on the veranda of it's an old SEC hut, but it was taken there to replace a cattleman's hut that existed back in the day. And their high-powered semi-automatics weapons with their suppressors on the barrels, like 12, 14-inch long suppressors, leaning against the veranda post. And I said to them, hey guys, you realise the national park's open, there's bushwalkers up here, what the heck are you doing firing off rounds? And their reply to me was, we were just sighting in our guns, the only thing that got hurt today was a cardboard box. And they pointed off in a direction that they'd been shooting in to sight in their rifles. And as I informed them, that's the way that the very area that they were shooting to is where I would normally have emerged out of the bush to come up to this particular hut, because a lot of what I do is off track, as opposed to just following the Falls Creek to Mount Hotham bushwalk. So it's ongoing.
Can I ask you about the suppressors, which people know them as silencers?
Correct.
And limited knowledge here, but I would probably dare say that is highly illegal.
For you or me or any other member of the public, it would be. But for people that our park services employ to shoot our brumbies, our deer, even the kangaroos, they get, dispensation, I suppose, that allows them to use suppressors on their firearms. Now, a lot of people, they love the old Hollywood movies, so they see the pistol and somebody screws the silencer on the front, and all they basically get is a pst, pst, as the gun is fired. I can tell you it is louder than that. You still get a rather noisy retort, but you don't tend to get that echo reverberation coming off the mountainsides and things like that. It's very short, it's very sharp, and then it's gone. But you can still very much from a distance, and I suppose that the day I heard them on the Bogongs and then encountered them later on, they were probably a kilometre away from me, and I could hear their gunshots as clearly as I can hear you now.
Let's talk about the Bogong High Plains, the Bogong Brumbies. Again, iconic Brumbies, and contrary to what the government says, or Invasive Species Council says, they come out with distorted figures or information, the misinformation that they do peddle, and they do because they need to cover this up, this atrocity. Tell me how many are left.
To be honest, that's the great unknown. My experiences and some colleagues of mine who go up there weekly and have done for years, these friends of mine, they're high country grazing families. We had a period of time probably 4 years ago where there were between sort of 67 and potentially 100 Bogong Brumbies left, which, again, for the size of the Bogong High Plains in the area that they were inhabiting, it's an insignificant number. I mean, 9 out of 10 people that were going up there walking would walk right past and not even realise that there were Brumbies 100 metres away. They just didn't see them. The sad part is the shooting program up there, as I said, occurs when the park is open via ground shooting. They'll close the park and put helicopters over to shoot deer, and recently they've been shooting the horses as well. And how many are left is the great unknown. When we go up there now, we just don't see any. We really do not see any. That's not saying there's not one or two left down in the bottom of a very steep gully or something like that. But the bottom line is, to all intents and purposes, Mike, those historic heritage horses, with direct links to the remount trade for our soldiers in the Boer War and the First World War, have been wiped out. They're gone.
You know, as I'll keep this tidy this bit, as an Australian who loves this country, and I've been quite critical also, that is and I'll keep this clean, is an atrocity. And it is highly disrespectful of the creatures, the fellow Aussies, that also fought with us in wars and died for us in wars. And then I know a little more, and I'm not going to say it at the moment, about the respect for horses, but these are highly intelligent creatures that the damage has been highly exaggerated to the point of being hysterical and not supported by true fact. Tell me about the Victorian government, because the New South Wales government doesn't claim all the kudos for what it's doing at the moment. Victorian government, tell me about because I have to tell you, I have been very ignorant because I've not read or seen much about it. No one has talked about it. About the Victorian government's approach to eliminating one of our fellow Australians.
Look, I suppose similar to Kosciuszko, in the background we had this NGO, non-government organisation, and they were just constantly chipping away at the Victorian government. There's words that I won't use to describe them. I want to keep this G-rated, so to speak. But they pressured and pressured and pressured. Now, in a lot of instances, they utilised Indigenous voice, and I'll step off the bogong a little bit. I'll go across the Murray River to an area known as the Barmah Forest, which is 45 minutes north of Shepparton, up there between Cobham and Echuca. And this NGO and the government got together. There's a joint management plan in place for Barmah that incorporates the Indigenous people from the area, or their corporation, and they decided it just needed to be 100% eradication of those horses out of Barmah. So it was kept out of the media to a degree, and we've recently heard from people we know inside the media that the governments, be it Victorian or be it New South Wales or be it federally, have actually turned around and told the media networks that if they cover the Brumby situation, particularly from our side of the argument, then the government will withdraw all of their advertising funding. So that means, all of your Medicare ads and your NDIS advertising and all of those government adverts that come out via the media, the government will just withdraw it. And that's a huge hit in the hip pocket of these media outlets. So they were able to control the narrative. People in Melbourne were completely unaware that they were up there in our high country effectively murdering our heritage. They just, and even to this day, we still run into people. I run into bushwalkers while I'm out on my adventures. And occasionally in Kosciuszko or somewhere, I might be able to guide them in and show them some wild horses. But their initial reaction when I meet them is they're unaware that we even have wild horses in Australia. So this NGO driving this, narrative that we have the largest, as they call them, feral horse population in the world, and they try to come up with numbers of 400,000, 500,000, 26,000 in Kosciuszko, and they drove the numbers up to 700 over in the Barmah when there were only about 300. If that was the case, how is it so many Australians are completely oblivious to the fact that we have wild horses, let alone that the government are out there slaughtering them? It just beguiles belief, Mike.
It does, and it's they did that with COVID. You know, they're safe and effective. It's safe and effective, or some would say sudden and unexpected. But they did the same thing. You know, that's why every news bulletin sounded the same, because they were reading from a media release. And I do know that because that's all I've done in my entire life is worked in the media. I'm a terrible person, according to
No,
my
not really.
yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
But I mean, the point I'm pointing out is that there are some things that are very obvious, and the obvious part was that you are right, they needed the money, and they still do, especially free to air, because the numbers are diminishing because of other alternatives. So therefore, they need to pull in as many dollars as possible because they're going to pay for the license and all that sort of stuff, staff and whatever. But it doesn't excuse telling lies. By not telling the truth, you are actually telling a lie. And for Australians to act like that, and to have the media who should be representing the temperature of certain topics, to be eliminating that as a discussion point, says that they are a massive failure. And
100%.
Journalism is a massive failure.
I'll give you a little example quickly. You know, because we have across various areas and various situations, we've tried to work in with media. I approached Bill Tilley, who is the Liberal member for Benambra, which covers that area down and around the Bogong High Plains and into Victoria's Eastern Alps, which, you know, a lot of people don't realise that's border country. It abuts Kosciuszko National Park. And in talking with Bill, he actually said to me he knew a lovely young journalist, worked for ABC Regional, something, you know, I don't know exactly what they were called, but it was ABC in regional areas. And he'd been talking to her, and she wanted to come up onto the Bogong High Plains with myself and a camera crew and follow my adventures and show the environment, show the ecosystem, show how healthy it was, and show that the horses were in place. So we were in the process of organising all of that, and then Bill rang me up and said, mate, unfortunately it's not going to happen. His impression was that higher up the chain within that network had actually turned around and told her that that was not a story that they wanted told. It's not a story they wanted people to see, and that she was no longer allowed to come up with me. And that's been going on the whole way through. We've spoken to journalists on a Monday, and by Wednesday it's like we're persona non gratis, and they don't return phone calls, they don't answer messages, they don't reply to emails anymore. So there's something chipping away in the background that's got to be coming from government that is actually shutting down this narrative. And I think it's sad, because similar to what these handful of people that call themselves scientists are doing, they're actually destroying the integrity of science. And these people that are trying to control this narrative and stop the other side, the true side, our side of the narrative getting through the media, they're actually destroying the integrity of journalism.
They are indeed. In journalism, we interviewed a lady when we had TNT radio. We were okay. We had 140 million now last year, 20 million downloads. We were okay. But she said journalism is in trouble, and it still is. And when you keep, I was always taught to ask why. And like you, we were taught to ask why. We don't do that anymore. We just say, yes, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, thank you for the check. Tell me, who monitors the culls at the moment?
Look, that's a difficult one to answer, you know. Theoretically, the buck stops with the state government's departments of environment, whether it's environment and heritage in New South Wales or down here in Victoria. It's all been rolled into now, including environment, energy, climate change, all these sorts of things. Most people, and rightly so, they tried to hold the minister accountable, but 9 times out of 10, the minister is as ignorant as the community. It's all of their little aides and assistants and bureaucrats working in the background that are doing 95% of the groundwork, and all the minister does is stand up in front of a microphone and read out a media release or dodge questions. The RSPCA should be holding them accountable from an animal welfare point of view. At one point in time, I was engaged by a group led by a lawyer to go out to a mob of shot brumbies that had been located and to do some evidentiary photographic work. So I took things like trajectory rods with me, and when we located the bullet wounds, we'd insert the trajectory rod, which would follow the track that the bullet had travelled inside the body, to try and determine where those bullets had come from. Were they ground shot? Were they aerial shot? Where in the body were they shot? And that group's legal side of things tried going through the Ombudsman's office, because trying to get through courts and obtain standing and things was becoming more and more difficult. So along the way in that process, the RSPCA became involved, and the RSPCA was sent those photographs, and I was CC'd into the email trail, and I was receiving emails from RSPCA inspectors asking, where were these horses and what were my views and thoughts and feelings on what had occurred. And things were tracking along nicely, and then I received an email basically saying, after further information received from Parks Victoria, we won't be proceeding with this. Now, this process had been going across, 4, 5, 6 weeks. The horses were photographed the day after they were discovered, which we believe was a day after they'd been shot. So they were photographed within 2 days of being shot. The RSPCA was involved via a lawyer that was part of the group that engaged me. The RSPCA never sent an inspector out to the actual site to inspect these horses themselves. It never occurred. Now, these horses, you could drive a 2-wheel drive vehicle down this road. It dissected the high country from Benambra right across to the east to the areas around sort of Walgolmarang, Silgan, which are just above Buchan, a nice touristy area out of Gippsland. So it wasn't hard to get there. From parking their car to coming to the first carcass, they would have had to walk 70 metres. And the RSPCA never bothered to send an inspector out to do an on-site investigation into the claims that these horses had been recklessly, carelessly, horrifically and inhumanely shot. And that was all on the strength of a telephone call they made to Parks Victoria.
That is, it's appalling, isn't it? In the RSPCA, I mean, we run an ad, and I'll keep it going, just a spot talking about how we need to be kind to animals, and it finishes up by saying something about the RSPCA. Ignore that part, but the rest of it is very good. Can you tell me, we often hear that it's beneficial to get rid of those horses, and I agree entirely. I disagree entirely with this, because it is not beneficial at all. But that's just my own humble opinion. Tell us what you think about this.
Look, in the numbers that they existed in, over the vast areas that they existed in, and look, I'm not this romantic type, I'm not a person that saw this movie, The Man from Snowy River, or this movie, The Silver Brumby. I knew a lot of the people that rode horses in those movies. I know the people who trained the horses that they used in those movies. I'm not the romantic type, I'm the realistic type. Yes, you can walk through the bush and you can see a small hoof print impression. And beside that, you're going to see a kangaroo impression, you're going to see a deer impression, you're going to see an emu impression. We're being sold this narrative that horses are large, heavy, hard-hoofed animals, and hard-hoofed animals never existed in Australia. But when you actually go out and you see with your own eyes that around every single waterhole, you're going to get an imprint on the ground from every animal that comes in to drink at that waterhole, be it native or not native. You're seeing more native animal footprints, whatever you like to call them, in a lot of instances, as opposed to a small number of horse hoof prints. A hoof print is not damage. They might say it's visually unsightly, but is it ecologically damaging? Is it environmentally damaging? No, it's not. Look at the next perspective of the horse's unique gut system. It's different to sheep and goats and cows and deer and all those sorts of things. So being single-stomached, what the horse eats goes through, they draw some nutrition out of it, and then the manure comes out the other end. It hasn't been fermented like it does when it goes through a cow's guts or a deer gut. So seeds and things like that remain viable. Because they're free roaming animals and they just wander around at will, they don't tear the vegetation out by its roots. They literally, due to their top and bottom incisors, nibble down and chew it off. They're intelligent creatures, you know. They don't eat the pantry empty before they go grocery shopping 4 days later and go hungry in the meanwhile. They move around, so they never eat out their entire food stocks. In moving around and dropping that manure in other places, the seeds inside that germinate and actually help cover up bare ground. They help the environment restore itself. You know, they're known ecologically as a keystone species, and it's why we're seeing places like, you know, the Mongolian steppe and China utilising the introduction of wild horses that existed in some areas. They're putting them into areas where they didn't naturally exist, and they're actually helping to hold back the deserts. They're helping claim it back because of their inherent natures. Now, you know, we've had renowned ecologists like Dr. Dave Berman come down, and he did a 2-year study on the Bogong High Plains. And on the Bogong High Plains, studying the impacts of our Brumbies, he found between 1% and 3% impact across his survey areas. And of that 1% to 3% impact, 98% of it was nothing more than horse manure piles. So there weren't torn up stream banks, there weren't great big mud wallows, there weren't massive areas devoid of vegetation. He found a quite healthy, thriving, ecological landscape with a little bit of horse poo in it. You know, those studies were put to Senate inquiries, and they were dismissed out of hand on the basis of they were partly funded by a group associated with fighting to preserve our Brumbies. Now, if we applied that same logic to all of the peer-reviewed science coming out of some of these universities via particular professors, and they're masters of cut and paste. They don't actually really go out and do their own field research anymore. They look at papers that we've produced over the last 30 years, and they just cut out the sections that seems to suit their agenda and paste it into a new document and then submit that for peer review. But if we applied that same logic to their papers and said we're going to dismiss or accept these based on where your funding comes from, we'd be dismissing every single one of them because their funding comes from what we would call the greenies or the overwrought environmentalist types through donations or, you know, funding through the Ian Potter Foundation or things like that. And that's not disparaging the Ian Potter Foundation by any means. But, you know, if their funding is coming via groups who are determined that we have to get to a situation where nothing exists in Australia other than a native animal, then all of their research would be discounted out of hand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And sometimes it's, sometimes if you want to distort facts and make it swing in your way, it's quite easy to do that. Just quickly, we have run out of time. I just want to find out your thoughts for the future. Just if you could be succinct about it, just what we need to do to get back to a balance.
Look, in my view, and I know there's going to be people out there that are going to do the old, oh, well, why aren't we out there protecting cane toads and protesting about preserving the cane toads and whatnot? It's all distraction. It's all nonsense that they throw out there. To be honest, though, in my view, and it's a view shared by a lot of friends internationally, ecologists internationally, environmental scientists internationally, animal welfare advocates internationally. We've got to stop this nonsense now of native, not native. And that seems to be all that these invasive species council people have. At the end of the day, they don't like to engage in debate. In fact, they blocked me from all of their sites, pages, any Facebook groups associated with them probably 5 years ago because they don't like hearing the other side of the equation. What we've got to get back to now, and let's face it, as a society, we have people that come from all different walks of life and all different nations around the world living in multicultural Australia. And like it or not, yes, there's always going to be a certain element that don't seem to abide by our ethics, our principles, don't fit our cultural entity. And that can be said for every race in the world. We've got people born and bred in Australia that I don't believe fit that narrative. But when it comes to the horses, we've got to start looking at net benefits versus net deficits as opposed to they're introduced. And do a proper true study and go, okay, yes, there's a few footprints in the ground, but the way they graze, the way they free roam, the way their manure puts humic material back into the soils, it puts carbon back into the soils. 10 grams of carbon back into the soil increases that soil's water holding capacity by about 100, or takes that capacity out to about 170 litres. So rather than this native, non-native, it's got to go, it's detrimental. If they cannot prove categorically, to the exclusion of everything else, the exclusion of the deer, the pigs, the ski resorts, the roads, the roller coasters, the that they're not discussing, and prove that this situation is purely and simply as a result of the horses and nothing else, they've got to stop this nonsense of they're not native. And they've got to look at it and say the environmental benefits of these horses actually being there in maintaining an ecosystem, in creating a healthy environment, far outweigh a handful of little hoof prints that we see here and there. Now, a classic example, Mike, up on the Bogong High Plains again, and I know we haven't even got near Cozzy yet. I could, talk to you every day of the week for a year, and we would not cover off on everything that needs covering off on. And I'm certainly not trying to shut down horse riding. I believe horse riding should remain. It's great for people. It's a great way to travel. It's heritage. It's historical. But you can go up onto the Bogong High Plains behind Falls Creek and you can park your car and you can take off across the Australian Alps walking track that goes from the High Plains Road down past Mount Cope and up over Mount Bundarra and across to Mount Jim, and then you can sort of turn a little bit south and then you drop down into the headwaters of the Kabunga River and cross over and come up the other side to Hotham Heights Ski Resort. And as you get out of your car and you start to walk on that Australian Alps walking trail, there's a sign that instructs recreational horse riders that they are not allowed to ride their horses on the walking track. They must disperse into the native vegetation to either side of the trail to undertake their horse riding activities. Now, this is how pathetic and hypocritical their arguments are. Because if I go up there on a horse shod with steel shoes and it's acceptable for me, so as I don't damage their precious walking track, to ride that horse through the alpine meadow grasses, the wildflowers, the heaths and sedges and things like that that naturally occur, how can we then complain that a wild, unshod horse who's native to the area, and by native I mean, these are horses that are generational horses. It's the only home they've ever known. It's where they were born. They've grown up in that environment. They respect that environment. They depend on that environment, so they look after it. Not like us, we go and tear it down and we destroy it because we want a new skate park or a new mountain bike trail or something like that. These horses respect where they live. They're not doing the damage that a recreational horse rider is actually being instructed to do. You know, it's nonsensical the way they're going about this. Their science is bastardised and manipulated to suit an agenda. And it's really, really sad that they're taking science down that pathway because, as I said before, they're destroying its integrity and they're hiding the truth from the Australian people. I mean, I've been taken to court to prevent me from accessing national parks so that I can't expose their lies. You know, a horse walking through an alpine sphagnum bog, and yet I've got footage where the contractors sent in there to shoot the horses have driven their four-wheel drives repeatedly through the same sphagnum bogs and torn the bejesus out of them. So they did. They actually took me to court. Parks Victoria could not work out how to prosecute me themselves, so they provided a lot of information about my activity to one of the contract shooters. And he travelled all the way to Shepparton, where I live, to apply in the Shepparton court for a personal safety intervention order, because apparently me with cameras is super scary, even though they've got high-powered weapons. And the interim orders, until that process concluded, banned me from being within 200 metres of any national park in the state of Victoria. So for 4.5 months, they utilised a manipulation of the law to keep me out of any national park in the state of Victoria because they're terrified that we are going to expose the truth.
Yep. And that's what they don't want. Now, we have, I don't mean to cut you short by any stretch, we have run way over time, and I would like to invite you on again. In fact, next week, fingers crossed, we'll be broadcasting live from there for the whole week, and we must organise something. I don't know what, but you're in Shepparton, and I used to work in Shepparton, so my wife's from Shepparton, so we know the area well. So,
she's a nice little place. She's central to everywhere, Mike.
It is lovely. I used to work at 3SR.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Many years, and then I used to do a disco there after it and misbehave enormously, but I always got away with it because I was so polite. If somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
So realistically, I've tried to keep a bit of a low profile, you know. I've kept a lot of my advocacy offline. I only actually got onto Facebook about 8 years ago now, and that was actually due to mentoring a leadership program via the fire brigade. And all these younger people, they love things like Messenger. It's quicker than emails because it pings on our phone and tells us there's something there. So that's when my advocacy became public. But on Facebook, it's just Dean Marsland. It's a beautiful little sunset image in that circular bit and a beautiful background photo of our layers and layers and layers of blue, beautiful mountains. Or they can jump over onto My Big Backyard Photography. That's a page that I run, and it's just some lovely images of everything. It's not just horses. You'll see kangaroos, and you'll see lizards, and you'll see flowers. You'll see everything. So that's how people can sort of see what I'm up to, and just shoot me a message via Messenger.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it enormously, and thank you for being concise, succinct, and truthful. Dean Marsland there, here on the Country Telegraph.
The king may rule over land and sea. The lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. the sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The writer thinks, the poet sings, the craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, the miner follows, the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The merchant, he may buy and sell, the teacher do his duty well. But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways. From king to beggar, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The farmer's trade is one of worth. He's partner with the sky and earth. He's partner with the sun and rain, and no man loses for his gain. And men may rise, or men may fall, but the farmer, he must feed them all. God bless the man who sows the wheat, who finds us milk and fruit and meat. May his purse be heavy, his heart be light, his cattle and corn and all go right. God bless the seeds his hands let fall. For the farmer, he must feed us all.
And thanks for joining us. This is the Country Telegraph. It's 9:15, and probably another 15, 20, 30 minutes. Who knows? We'll stop when we want to stop. CFA volunteers battling cancer crisis warn alleged neglect is putting their lives at risk. A Victorian CFA brigade is blaming the staggering number of cancer cases affecting its members, which have so far claimed 3 lives, on chronic underfunding and safety failures. The group claims the state government has ignored its calls for help. Now, Brad Marsden is a CFA Volunteers Group Vice Captain at Grassdale, also a Grassdale Captain, and Merino Deputy Group Officer. Brad, this is very serious. Tell me more about the and thank you for joining us. Tell us about the cancer scare, or not cancer scare, the ominous signs that cancer is rampant. Why would that be?
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks for the opportunity. Since we've had a lot more evidence come in, it's been proven over and over again now. The carcinogenics that are linked to firefighting, they're just so extreme, so proliferant within the service and the career, whether you're a volunteer or not. They're just everywhere. They're hard to avoid in this line of work, so to speak. So yeah, the Nanagoon are a very, very unfortunate story, which is, I've said before, they're the tip of the iceberg around the state, really. And we've got new safe working levels coming in December, and it's going to be massive for the Victoria CFA firefighting service. The amount of stations and volunteers that are going to be exposed and not actually have the protections required against these carcinogens.
It's ironic that you're protecting Victoria. Who's protecting you?
No one. Absolutely no one at the moment. And this is one of the key things that we need change to happen. Volunteers now were supposed to be on the same level as a paid service or a career service, but we don't have the representative that has protected rights, guaranteed funding so they can do their job. As volunteers, we already give up our time. We don't have the funds as well to pay for a representative body that has the same rights as a career union or representative just to come out and protect us. So this is why our groups we're volunteers, we're captains, we're group officers, we're mums, we're dads, brothers, sisters, mum, and yeah, we don't have anyone, and we've had to come out and do this on our own as volunteers because there's no one else doing it. Like, we've got a lot of other stuff we could be doing, but where's the line? And we're drawing it at CFA Firefighters Live because no one else is, and something needs to happen.
Because really in any other workplace, they'd say stop because you will get cancer. Here, they're not saying that at all. And in any other workplace, they would also provide you with medical support. They're not doing this here. This is the Allen government at its very best. I have to ask you, though, what about the opposition? Do they have a solution, or do you think it's same policy, different face?
The opposition are very much aware and are more open the issues that we have, and they need to be addressed. But that's not a get out clause for them. They still need to talk to us because we're having conversations, but we're not having the in-depth conversations we need to have to know that they are going to support volunteers. So whether you're a Nationals, a Liberal, One Nation, Greens, Animal Justice Party, at the moment everyone needs to talk more and actually get into some detail with us, specifically with us, because we are the volunteers. And we are, like I say, we're the only ones at the moment that are actually trying as much as we can to raise awareness around the state, because it is a state issue. It doesn't matter where we are. If I'm in Western Victoria, if something happens over in Gippsland or the northeast of Victoria, and my pager goes off and says we need help, I go. And that's what volunteers do. It doesn't matter where you are in the state, whether you're in Metro or suburban Melbourne, in the outer suburbs. If you need help, a CFA volunteer will come. And we get a lot of words, but they're empty. We get hollow promises. We had a big announcement probably 8 weeks ago. But what that actually translates into over 10 years is just about going to cover inflation. It's not going to give the service or the grassroots volunteers anything extra on the front line. It's just going to mean we can buy in 10 years' time what we can buy today. It's not going to actually improve anything. We're already going backwards.
Tell me, the compensation scheme, you do have one, but they're not admitting causality, so therefore it's not recognising, of course, that they are to blame. How do we minimise the danger? Do we stop using those chemicals? Do we have another approach, or what? Because those chemicals supposedly put out the fires. If you take it away, how else would you put them out?
Look, you're talking about foams and the PFAS and things like that, but it's even smoke alone is a carcinogen. Diesel fumes in a lot of the stations, because our stations are still very basic, they're tin sheds. We're going to have, like I say, there's going to be the particulate level, or a safe working level in December is going to go from 0.1 to 0.01 because of more health evidence coming to light that our exposure limits have been miles too high. So they're going to drop by around 90%. And it's these issues that we're not proactively addressing. And it is part of the job, which we get, but we still need to be protected against them and proactively have risk mitigation equipment put in around stations and on our personal bodies while we're fighting fires and bushfires. The fund's not there.
How hard is it to get volunteers? I mean, is it difficult? I mean, and with what we're talking about now, even though someone would like to do the very best for the community, and that's what the CFA does, their community is all coming together. You have to, and it's a really tricky one. You've got to draw the line somewhere, because it's not much chop if you're dead or incapacitated. But on the other hand, if you don't do what you're doing now, communities just burn to the ground. I mean, this is just a dreadful state to be in. I mean, I don't know which way you would go, because one, you have the conscience of the CFA and the respect of the community, saving their lives, their houses, their properties. On the other hand, if you do that, you have an excellent chance of dying.
And I suppose that's the mentality of a volunteer. It's selfless. You're determined. You want to help. you'd help someone else before you'd help yourself. That's just the mindset of a genuine CFA volunteer. You know, and a lot of people around the state, especially when you get into the suburbs and outer suburbs, still don't realise if you see a fire truck with CFA written on the side, every single person is a volunteer. No one gets paid, and they all do it to protect the community. And this is something that's still disjointed, and people don't. Yeah, unfortunately, there is a portion of Victorians that don't realise there is nobody in the CFA, no one's paid. There isn't a single CFA firefighter that gets paid. Yet it's the largest frontline emergency service that protects the majority of the state. But like you said, it's been the same government, and over the past 10 years, the CFA has lost around 1,000 volunteers a year under the same government. Our equipment and stations infrastructure has been going down. It's on a downward trend through the support of the Greens and the Legalised Cannabis Party. And it's just hard. It's hard to fathom why the CFA doesn't matter. Like, it's the largest frontline emergency service in the state, and this government, with the support of the Greens and Legalised Cannabis, just kick us to the curb.
I'm flabbergasted, and I feel very sad that this is an occurrence in Victoria. Do you think a change of government will help?
It can't get any worse, Mike. And that's, you know, we need some form of change. We need to have pressure on governments through the community and through the Victorian, you know, public. We need to put pressure on and apply pressure and make them open their eyes. When volunteers are dying because they're going to risk their lives for the Victorian community and the government doesn't care, something has to happen. And it's not going to happen without the community actually coming to help us this time. And that's what we really need.
Yeah, I truly feel for you. I think it's, and I don't think, even with the current campaign, I sometimes wonder if it's getting through the noise and having an impact, and we'll see at the next election. I think Jess Wilson needs to, I mean, she's a bushy from way back, and she needs to also ensure that the community that's looking after Victoria, that being the CFA, needs to be looked after, and given some vehicles that have been made in this century would help too. If somebody wants to find out more about how they can help or be part of the solution, how do they do that?
Look, and like I say, the biggest thing is we need to apply pressure on the parties. So whether it's, you know, following our pages on Facebook, Instagram, emailing us on our website, or simply talking to your local MP and asking them, what are you doing? You know, pull your heads out the sand. Like, CFA drastically need help. Over the past 10 years, or unfortunately 3 terms, we've been completely and utterly ignored.
Maybe, because I hear the accent from the UK, maybe a Glasgow kiss to a couple of politicians might be just what is needed.
Maybe. You never know.
And by the way, Glasgow kiss is not a sign of appreciation by any stretch. Brad Marsden,
No.
Marsden, thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it, and we'll do more of this. Pass on our regards to John Houston. John Houston, a songwriter extraordinaire, and a great character and a great advocate also for better conditions for CFA volunteers. Thank you so much. This is the Country Telegraph.
Across Australia, communities are coming together to host screenings of Just a Farmer. Every screening is different. Some are hosted by community groups, some by sporting clubs, some by local organisations and volunteers who simply want to bring people together. What they all have in common is connection, a chance to check in, a chance to start a conversation, a chance to remind people they're not alone. These screenings create space for communities to come together and have conversations that matter. We're always looking for communities who would like to host a screening of Just a Farmer. Could your community be one of them? Let's start conversations that matter.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Got another 15 minutes or thereabouts to go, maybe a titch less. I caught a story. I was watching YouTube, just browsing through it, vegging out. Brain was like, which is like it always, like jelly. And I was quite interested in a story on a current affair. And it just shows you, someone criticised me the other day for saying that those on the land are under attack, and they are. You are under attack, either part through ignorance, part through wanting to save the planet and destroying it at the same time, and part just through just pure not ignorance, pig-headedness. We're right, you're wrong. And instead of consultating those that look after the environment very well, that being the rural community, they sit in their desk, behind their desk in the major cities, whether it's Melbourne City, Sydney, Brisbane, whatever, Canberra, and they tell the farmers how they should look after the land. And most likely the closest thing they've come to seeing what grows in the land and how it operates is when they pop down to the local supermarket. I want to play you this. This actually is a shocker. It shows you that the New South Wales government does need to be replaced. It needs to be replaced as soon as God can let it happen. I know the election is sometime next year. It needs to happen earlier. Chris Minns, your government is an entire disgrace to the entirety of this country.
Making a living on the land is hard work, and it's been made even tougher thanks to so-called pink maps. It's the government's way of dictating what people can and can't do on their land. Farmers are furious, claiming the mapping's flawed, but they're being ignored.
It's quite immoral to tell someone how they should do something that they've been doing for generations.
It destroyed part of my family, destroyed our income and everything. And it's unjustifiable, it's just nonsense.
The mental health load with this is just amazing. How we lost a good mate to the shit. Sorry.
West Wyalong is a small town about a 5-hour drive west of Sydney. The population, 5,500 people, and it's mostly made up of generational farmland. But the livelihoods, futures and businesses of the landholders is in turmoil under the government's vegetation protection mapping.
The mapping is a joke. It's hopeless.
Also known as pink maps, the native vegetation restrictions mean anything under the pink cannot be plucked, picked or disturbed.
Erin, this where you're walking is pink, and where I'm walking is blue. And so I can bend over and I can pick this grass here. I can get a shovel and dig this ground, but if you do that there, that's illegal.
Rod Hardy runs a stud farm.
We've got in total around 5,500 acres.
And how many sheep do you have?
We'll share between 2,700 and 3,000.
Rod says he'd love to have more, but pink mapping's making it hard.
We've got little areas of crop we can't put in, so I haven't put paddocks in, and this is limiting what I can do with grazing, and so it's impacting it vastly.
Rod says most of the mapping on his land is wrong.
This is the pink area here that we've been talking about, and we're right in the middle of it.
And so what are these trees and what are they used for?
These are a Murray pine. They're quite commonly used in building. It's a native timber that has high value, and it's very sustainable. But yeah, here it's been listed as critically endangered.
Farmer Keith Rowe says the incorrect pink mapping on his land is impacting workflow.
This big tractor and the air cart, that's what we use for seeding all our crops. The quickest way for us to get out onto the road, to get back to our home farm, is straight through here. Now, it's a roadway right through the middle of the pink. So if I go up that road and I knock off a branch or whatever, I'm breaking the law.
A 5-minute trip now taking several hours.
We've got to drive about 6 k's back around the back of this paddock.
It's not just the detour causing Keith stress. Most of his land is now untouchable.
There's about 800 acres arable, but there's 900 acres of pink map.
Pink maps came into effect in 2017. Locals say there was no consultation. Keith was made aware after purchasing these extra acres for business in 2021, despite regular communication with the government's local land service.
We receive rate notices from the LLS quarterly. Why couldn't they have had an explanatory letter or anything?
Keith says his business prospects are now down the drain.
We've taken a hit on the equity because it's put worthless with the pink map on it. It's been used for UCO oil production, it's been used for broom bush cutting.
The region's popular for broom bush harvesting to make fencing, but some ecosystems containing the shrub are now critically endangered.
Now when you cut it, it stimulates the growth. It's called coppicing. But if you don't cut it, it becomes a very unattractive, dead, dangerous tree.
Gay Wheatley's family built their broombush business from the roots up, but pink mapping has destroyed their income.
It's completely overnight just destroyed him by people who have never stepped foot on my land.
The mapping was done via satellite, and Gay says most of her property is now classified as endangered.
And they even put my husband's grave and my grandson's grave under their pink, saying it was trees.
Gay says her late husband Ned planted everything on their property and built the lake.
They took our income, our industries, and then they went into our personal space, put it over the lake, and then they went to the very heart of us and put it over our graves. You know, I don't know what type of people we're dealing with in these governments.
Landholders have battled for the government to review the mapping, which is now in the hands of the New South Wales Threatened Species Scientific Committee.
Hard to do a map review if you don't know what map unit you've got.
Dr Anne Clements has been an ecologist for 30 years and spent more than 600 hours mapping the region.
Areas with the mallee and the broom bush are not under threat.
Dr Clements submitted her peer-reviewed findings to the committee 9 long months ago.
What I've submitted is pretty clear cut.
Should it be taking this long for them to review?
I didn't expect it to be month after month after month. By February, I would have expected them to go to a scientific committee meeting and go through the submission.
In a statement to A Current Affair, the committee said it will consider the submission from Dr Clements, but is unable to give a timeline for completion. As for individual land reviews, Minister Penny Sharp has advised landholders can have the vegetation map reviewed for inaccuracies.
I asked back in February to get a review done, and after jumping through a fair few hoops to get that close to it, the contractor hasn't arrived.
For now, the impact on businesses and livelihoods is pushing farmers to breaking point.
That the mental health load with this is just amazing. How we lost a good mate to the shit. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
And it's just so unnecessary. It's unnecessary. They have the document, they have the nomination, the peer-reviewed nomination that'll clear this up in a meeting.
You need a clear mapping unit and you need the local community on board.
What they've done is environmental disaster, an emotional disaster, and it's just wrong.
It's our home. This is where we live. This is not just our business, it's our livelihood.
It's an absolute farce. Complete the review, the pink map goes away.
Incredible, isn't it? It's an absolute disgrace. And there you are, yet another community under attack by the government, and they're on the land. And it's to save the planet, destroy those poor buggers. But so whatever we can do to create the awareness that these people are purely, they lost the plot. In the olden days, you give them a foot on the backside and a box in the ears and tell them to grow up. Can't do that now. But truly, I mean, sometimes I miss, actually a lot of times, miss the old days when I had a horse. and no electricity. I'm not that old. Stop it. I'm going to go in a tick. I'm going to play you the weather. Then I'm going to play you a particular piece of music. We'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us here at the Country Practice on this Monday, start of a week. I still can't get used to Mondays. Hands up for those who hate Mondays. I hate Mondays. But anyway, we had a good Sunday. The Saints won. Greatest victory ever, according to the AFL, ever in the history of VFL and AFL. That was the biggest win, best win, most stunning. Okay, I lie. Anyway, have a good one. See you tomorrow. This is the Country Telegraph.
Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Brumby hoofprints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains my fellow Brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now, shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace, the Snowies are my clan. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain. The sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound. Though every instinct tells me run, there's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. fall upon the ground. Thunder. Again and again, my heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home, the snowy mountains were ours. Tell my fool I knew her fear, tell my mare I heard her call, tell my fool I tried to save them, tell the wind how Brumbies fall. Tell my fool I kept on running, tell my mare I heard her cry, tell the mountain I belonged here, tell the wind I said goodbye.